Here I am. Hello.
Hi, Delena.
Hi. Let me just get the full screen up again. View, full screen. There we are. Okay.
Yeah, I think I just need your camera just down a little bit because I'm missing some of your yeah, lovely.
Okay. Good.
That's
Right.
perfect. Fantastic. So for those who've already joined us, there's two ways of participating in this event. Either you just listen to these and watch the conversation we're having this evening, or you can watch the episode along, and we're sort of guided, because the conversation will be guided a little bit by what's happening on screen, because I'll be watching the episode in front of me. So if people do want to watch the episode on mute while we're talking, it might spark some questions from the audience to do it that way. So if you do want to watch the episode as we're talking, you just want to get the episode ready in front of you, we're going to pause on the drop of the ABC, so the ABC logo, the A, when it drops down, we'll pause there, and then I'll do a countdown from 5, and then we'll press play together. Okay, yes, the person I was thinking of is now online, so that's perfect. Okay, so okay, let's make a start. So thanks, Delena, for joining us to talk about your career, but also, of course, focusing on the Avengers is most kind of you. So we're just going to press play on the episode, and then we'll begin our conversation. So Faber just wants to get the episode ready. So just pausing on the first A of ABC. So if anybody's having any trouble logging on or doing it, do let me know, and we can always pause, but otherwise we'll make a start. Okay, I think everyone's ready. Okay, so 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and play. So first of all, Delena, I wanted to ask you, do you remember how the Avengers came into your life in the first place? Whether you were, I assume it's just a call from your agent, like a lot of jobs.
Yes, I don't remember that. No, I don't. I was doing a lot of television around this point, so it wasn't nearly as difficult as it is now. People having to send in these auditions and things. On the whole, if you'd done a lot like I had, then you just got asked to do things. You didn't have to read or send anything in. And the director I'd worked for, certainly I think before and since Don Lever, he did a lot of things then.
Oh yes, so, I was going to ask about Don Lever, because I think directors back in could have much more perhaps a casting power perhaps back then.
Yes, they did. The director would say, "I want so and so." Boom, you were in. You know, it wasn't like the long process now that goes through casting people, and then a lot of people have to be seen, and mostly on these online, not even online, but you know, you're sent a script and you have to act it, and you send your performance in, and goodness knows how many people send in for each part. I don't know, but it's much more competitive.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Because you worked on an episode of Armchair Mystery Theatre that happened to be produced by Leonard White, who was the producer for the Avengers. So I wondered whether there was any link. But, yeah,
I took it all for granted in those days, my dear. You just went from job to job, you know.
And I suppose if you had a reputation of being reliable, good performer, that kind of sort of led you on from job to job, sort of thing.
Yes. And also, I was a great friend of Ian Hendry, that I'd like to talk about.
Oh, yes.
Maybe he was consulted, I don't know, but I'd done a tremendous amount. Shall I talk a bit about Ian? I had been all through the Central School with Ian. We both left in 1955, which is only 5 years before this, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, 61. So yeah, just over 5 years. Yeah.
And certainly we did a tremendous amount of acting together, playing husband and wife. We did a lot of it at drama school, and then we both went to the Oxford Playhouse, and then we were both in a tour in London in the West End with a show called Dinner with the Family. And then we were at the Edinburgh Festival, and then we were in the film A Room at the Top together. So we'd done a tremendous amount together. I was very fond of him. We were very, very good friends. He was never a partner in any sense, but we were really good friends, and we responded well to each other, you know, acting wise. I mean,
so it was quite sort of a giving actor, quite sort of very sort of easy to work with. It sounds.
Yeah, very. He was a marvelous actor. You know, he did lots of wonderful things, and he sadly died quite young. I think he got a bit of a drink problem, I'm afraid, and
Mm.
it ruined what could have been well, he had a marvelous career, he did all sorts of things, but it should have gone on much longer.
Oh, yeah, yes, absolutely. That was never something that you were aware of, that he had some issues, or when you were
No,
working?
no.
No, no.
Not then.
Um,
He was young, He was,
mm.
I guess he was 22 when I met him, was he? Must have been about 30, 31 here, that's all.
Yes, well, about that sort of age.
Yeah,
I was wondering, because of course your parents, your father was a doctor, your mother was an actress.
yeah.
Did you always want to follow because of your mother's?
Yes, I did. I
Yeah.
mean, yes, I did. She was at RADA for 2 years, and then she did quite a lot of work in the West End and touring with plays and in London. And then she met my father. He was a doctor up in the Northeast, and she married him, and that was it. She went up to the Northeast. In those days, you couldn't live up in Washington, County Durham, where I came from, and do all sorts of jobs. People just didn't do it then,
Hmm.
Nowadays, people can live all over the country, really, and they jet around and do things. But in those days, so she gave it up. So she was always interested in my acting. My father didn't want me to be a doctor. He said the training was too long.
Yeah.
And they were very supportive. Yeah.
Because I think acting is always regarded as being perhaps not the safest of professions. So I was kind of wondering where they were perhaps a little bit wary, but they were supportive.
Yes, they were. Absolutely. Yeah.
And when you were at the Central School, you won the Sybil Thorndike Prize. What production was that for?
And the gold medal.
Oh,
The Sybil Thorndike Prize was for each year, as the schools do now. Still, we did a matinee, a big matinee. We were at what was then His Majesty's Theatre, because this was before the Queen, was it? No, it was Her Majesty's Theatre. Anyway, a big matinee, and all the agents and casting people and it came to see these shows. And I had two very good parts. I played Madame Lenievsky in The Cherry Orchard. I mean, just scenes from, And what was the other one? Oh, yes, a play by Andre Aubé called Noah. It's a very funny Yorkshire comedy part. And anyway, it got me the prize. So it's nice. And
wonderful.
Started off, and my first job was immediately at the BBC with Peter Cushing. People don't know so much now, but he was a big star.
I know, of course, of his work. What was Peter like?
He was charming. And this was all live television in these days. We rehearsed for 3 weeks and then we performed it like a play. And if it was if it was repeated on Thursdays, people did it again. I mean, it seems extraordinary now.
Oh, yes. And of course, the Avengers was.
If you lost your lines, they did have a thing called a cut key, which would cut the sound and somebody would give the line in and they'd go on. But there was no stopping the broadcast because it was literally piped into people's homes as we were doing it.
Oh, yes. And when you get to the Honor Blackman Avengers series, they were.
Were they the first ones on film?
Well, they were also on videotape, but they were recorded as live, but they were then broadcast later.
Right, so they could mend any mistakes that happened. Yes.
Yeah, and I think even though I think it would have to be quite a big mistake for them to sort of.
Sure, because it costs a lot of money.
Every time you cut videotape, it's very expensive. I was
telling my husband today, someone I was at Central School with was doing a television in this period. A marvelous actor, Welsh actor, and he was in a scene sort of crawling through a tunnel, and he had a heart attack and he died, and they had to literally leave him there until it's ghoulish, isn't it? They had to leave him there till the end of the broadcast, and then they couldn't stop it. Amazing.
I suppose the show has to go on, doesn't it? Regardless. And I suppose in one respect, fortunate that he wasn't in the rest of the episode, I assume.
Exactly. Or maybe he wasn't. They made up some. I don't know. Oh, yeah. Anyway, so that was the beginning of it, really, and the.
Yeah. And you mentioned director Don Lever. What kind of man was Don?
Oh, a very practical, very hands-on, practical man. Technician. I worked for him again. I think I worked for him once or twice. All these people I'm with here, I had several encounters with Edwin Richfield, and then with Edwin's wife, Jan Holden, and Ingrid Hafner. I think I worked with her. I mean, we were a whole group of young actors then that sort of tended to go from one. There's a lot of episodic television. shadow squad, no hiding place, all those things. We seem to go round and round in those shows, you know.
Oh yeah, there seems to be almost a company of actors that go around Danger Man and the Saint and the Avengers. So you see the same kind of
Yes,
feel.
yes. The Four Just Men, I was in that, and the Third Man. You know, there's a lot of nice work, really.
And what was it like working on the Third Man TV series?
Oh, that was good. That was good. Who was that? I played a French girl. I played a Swedish woman in well, I was Russian in this, wasn't I? I was Swedish in the Four Just Men, and I was French in the Third Man. I don't know how good the accents were. We didn't have coaches in those days coming in to tell you how to do the accents. We just know how to do it.
I was going to ask about the accents because I assume that would have been covered part of your drama training anyway. You would go through it. And,
sure, it probably wasn't as accurate as it is now. You know, the wonderful voice people now that are there to tell you each sentence. You know?
Was there? Is there any accents that you dread doing, or are you quite happy to sort of give it?
No, I like doing Geordie, which is my own accent, but I haven't had an awful lot of opportunity to do it. I did The Moth, which was a North Country. Oh, what was that series called? The big romantic Northeast thing. I can't remember now. And the other one I was in was Vera. But otherwise, I tend to get posh parts.
Yeah.
I think I sound rather upper class. I'm not, but that was the way you were to drama school. You know, it was before all the Yorkshire and everything came in. It was you were considered to do RP, which is received pronunciation.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, I mean, I've always spoken like that. But anyway.
Well, certainly, if you look at newscasters at that time and all different kinds of,
it was all very nice. It was all spoken like that, quite correct.
Yeah, very much Queen's English, isn't it? Really.
Yes.
You mentioned that the rehearsal time was specifically 3 weeks, so I assume that the Avengers was no different in that respect.
Yes, I think so. Not quite as long as that. I can't remember. I can't remember a lot about the rehearsal for that, except it was nice with all those people I knew. Edwin and Ian, of course.
Because of course you don't get rehearsal periods now at all.
Of course we did. No, you go straight into it. There was we did some filming, of course. We must have done when I jumped over that bridge. I don't remember.
Yes, I looked at that earlier, and it looks like that. Of course, there is some
doesn't
filming.
Look terribly convincing, I'm afraid, does it?
Well, I think it's quite effective, especially in to cut with the location.
Yes,
with Ian and a couple of the other actors, and obviously
certainly didn't go over any railway bridge. I don't know where it was, but anyway.
And yeah, I think the angle that because obviously that was done in the on the actual studio, but the position of the camera. So I assume you would have only jumped by like 1.5 foot sort of thing, and you were on the stage. But is there? Do you think it's although of course live TV had its problems, probably being quite nerve-wracking, very technical. Was there something special about that kind of TV compared to say where TV is now? Is there something quite nice about doing it that way?
Oh, I thought there was. I mean, now you just I haven't done anything these last 2 years now, but it was just now you don't get to know the people. They place the scene and you do it, and that's it. So it's not like a company of actors, which it was still in those days.
Yes, very much like
each other in the rehearsal room, and you're chatting away, and so it's all a nice group. Nowadays, you probably don't even meet half the people you're in a show with because you just go in and do your scenes, and that's it.
Yeah, just turn up, quick hello, in and out, sort of.
Yeah, absolutely
Personal.
Yeah.
And I imagine when you're doing a nice rehearsal period, just like with a play, you're working out different elements of your character, different little.
Absolutely. I think it was a much better way. But of course, I guess the camera work wasn't quite so important then, It's advanced such a lot, all the camera. I mean, you used to do it with a lot of cameras, and pick it up on this camera and that camera.
And of course, we're talking about big cameras, aren't we? Sort of, and lots of cables and things.
Yeah. Trundling about, yes. Yeah.
So because half the effort is to not stumble on a cable
Yes.
So obviously the technical rehearsal is probably very important, just like it would be on a play in that respect.
Absolutely, the director be shouting away up in the galley, and
And Of course, people might not know that when you shot something that was done as live, all the sound effects would, of course, be played in. The music would be played in as well. Did you find that you got a bit nervous when you did live TV, or was it just like
That's what it was.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I'm right in thinking that this was live still, wasn't it?
Yeah. This book went out as live. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Actually, I saw when I looked it up, it went out on my birthday. It went out on February the 11th.
oh, right, yeah.
So it was my 26th birthday. It was just before I got married, actually.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah, I got married, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was wondering about just before you did the Avengers, you were credited as doing an episode of Danger Man with Patrick McGoon. Do you remember the Danger Man episode?
I don't think I had so much to do in Danger Man. Honestly, I can't remember. I'm sorry. This is over 60 years you're talking about.
Oh, yes,
absolutely.
absolutely.
On this one, I haven't looked at Danger Man for a long time. Patrick McGoon was a wonderful actor, though, of course.
He always had, I think, he had a bit of reputation sometimes as being one of those people that could either liked you or he didn't like you, and I think sometimes.
Well, I think I would say he liked me then.
He liked you. That's wonderful. Okay, so we mentioned that you knew Edwin Richfield, who plays Stefan, who's actually in the scene we're watching now. Actually, what was Edwin like?
Oh, he was a lovely man. I really liked him. He was charming. You can see how charming he was. He was good looking and charming, quite sophisticated. And then not long after that, I worked with his wife, who was Jan Holden. And they were such a glamorous couple. She was the most beautiful woman. I mean, the marriage didn't last, sadly, but she then did an episode. She did a series called Harper's West One, which was about a store. And I was in that as kind of mad girl who kind of went crazy and got into the window of the shop and arranged all the dummies in the window in kind of lewd positions. I don't know why I was mad anyway, but Edwin and she did a lot. They were, we were all young actors. I mean, not hugely young, but in our late 20s and early 30s.
And was your intention always to do TV, or did you initially want to just do stage? Or
I was really trained for the stage. We all were then, and I spent my first 3 years in rep. I was in Ipswich for 6 months, and then I went to Eastbourne, and then I went to Wolverhampton, and then I went to Birmingham. The Alex was a big company there. This same company would be there all year, you see, and that was again a lovely company feeling. And you just were in each play, so sometimes you were very well cast, very suitably. Other times you'd be playing an old woman or a maid, or you just had to fit in with what was going on. But particularly Birmingham, the Solbergs, Derek Solberg, that was a wonderful employer.
Yeah.
And we all stayed up there. We didn't come back to London every weekend. He used to give a party on a Saturday night for all the company. It was a very united thing. And then I went to Oxford. Frank Hawser was a wonderful director there. I did some marvelous work there, probably best theatre work I've ever done. And that's where I met my husband.
Oh, yes.
Gary Raymond, to whom I'm still married. So we've been lucky.
What were some of your favourite productions while you were at Oxford?
The Man Who Came to Dinner. I did that later on television with Leo McKern. That was another live television, actually. And it could go wrong sometimes. I mean, we rehearsed for 3 weeks. And Leo was one. Do you know the play, Man Who Came to Dinner? It's a big American thing. It's a big comedy.
In the back of my mind.
Yes. And he was brilliant. And then we came to do it. We were up in Birmingham in the studios, I remember. And for some reason, I guess it must have been pre-recorded that, but we had to wait about half an hour. The line or whatever it wasn't free. And in that time, he got so nervous. It was a huge part. And sadly, when he did it, he got so wound up by it. He was a marvelous actor. Do you remember him, Leo McKern?
Yes, that's ring a bell, yeah.
He did lots of things, but So that's a time. I actually slightly the same thing with Peter Cushing in the Brownie version. The tension of doing it was never quite as great as he'd been in rehearsal. So
Right.
it's disadvantages. If you had a huge part like that, the responsibility was so enormous.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But I also did wonderful restoration plays, which we're not allowed to do anymore. It's all to do with the fact that a lot of the restoration thing was built on sort of slave money. I'm not quite sure why, but certain drama schools like RADA refused to do restoration plays anymore because of the period and the political thing, which is a pity, I think, because they're wonderful plays.
I think what's interesting, not just on stage, but is affecting the entire sort of entertainment industry in terms of that. I think in some respects, rightly so, that there's a consciousness that perhaps sort of if you're playing somebody that's maybe disabled or you have to
Be it, but you didn't then, of course, you acted it.
Yes, and I suppose the whole thing about being an actor is that you by definition of an actor, you play everything.
Sure.
So I don't know how you feel about this sort of, it has to be this.
I don't know where it ends. There's no end to it, really. If you've got to have gay men, for instance, playing gay parts, then what else do they play? Are they not allowed to play straight parts? It's not right. And of course, Jewish actors too feel very strongly now that you should be that only Jews should play Jewish parts. I don't know. It's got quite, and of course, certainly, but now we have many diverse groups playing, like Henry V or something will be played now by a black actor, which is something quite different, which we never did. So it seems to work that way, but in other ways, it's rather restricting, I think.
Well, yes, absolutely. I think there was a big thing. Bradley Cooper was playing a Jewish composer, and he obviously had a false nose, and this is a film that's coming out soon, and people were kind of thinking, well, they shouldn't be.
Right. This is the Bernstein film, is it?
Yes, that was what I was thinking. Yes,
right.
yeah.
So it makes it all more complicated. And generally, that's the way literature is being changed. Old people like me find that difficult. Changing the Roald Dahl books and his whole program on yesterday. I don't know if you heard.
I have certainly heard about all the and
changing literature. I mean, I think if you're going to do it, you've got to do what's there. That's what was written.
The James Bond books, I think, also again are being
because they're so sexist, of course, aren't they? They're so women are just sort of to be slept with and move on. Anyways,
yeah, I think whether or not it's just like a message at the beginning of the book just says out of date issues.
We no longer behave in this way.
Yes, but I suppose it's part of the history, isn't it? And if you kind of if children perhaps read the books and they think, well, what's this mean? And then they work out, they find out that is racist or outdated. But if they read a new version, they may not quite know. So I think it could be perhaps a little bit.
I know. Even Shakespeare now, they're putting notices up saying there are terrible, frightening scenes. Well, of course there are. If it's Macbeth, there's murders going to take place. Well, of course they are. But I don't see why you have to warn people about it. Anyway, that's me.
And nobody seems to have thought about rewriting Shakespeare. So they haven't. It's kind of said, well, you focusing on certain things like Roald Dahl, Ian Fleming, but you're not doing it universally. So it's kind of an odd sort of situation to be in. I was just wondering what it was like, sort of being an actress back in the late 50s and 60s. Whether you, because obviously it's a very male-dominated world back then. Did you always feel comfortable? Did you always feel an equal?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I did. I was brought up by my father, and I went to a wonderful girls' school. I went to the Cheltenham Ladies' College, and we were very much trained to be empire builders, as it was then in those days, in the 40s and 50s, not the wives of anybody. We were very much educated to be strong people,
Yeah. And of course, in theatre and in rep, you're playing all kinds of roles. The lead one week, and then a supporting role the next.
No, I never suffered with that feeling of being. Occasionally, of course, I remember working with Jack Headley in something like this, and he said to me, "Well, how much are you being paid?" Now I can't remember what it was now. And he said, "I'm getting twice as much as that." But I just, I mean, one accepted it then, because you thought, well, the man's probably married and got a supportive family, but all that's changed now, But we certainly didn't get equal wages, I don't think.
Oh no, and I think still these days it's still
a moot point, isn't it?
A bit questionable as to whether it is completely equal, and certainly over the last decade or so, there's been lots of issues raised where there is a sort of discrepancy.
All the announcers and all that, they tend to give.
I was just wondering about.
I've been watching the news tonight. It's a terrible situation in Palestine with hostages and things. But what they're going to do is they're going to release the women and the children. You see what I mean? Women are still placed in a kind of more protected spot, aren't they? That we accept that perfectly. Of course, the women must go first. Like, when the Titanic all those years ago, it was all the women that get the women out. Save them. So it worked both ways, kind of, didn't it?
Oh yeah. Positive and negative. I think it's the same with stereotypes of how a man should be. I mean, this whole thing of a man can't cry, he can't moisturize, he can't be sensitive.
Yes, right.
So I think there's gender traps, I think, on both sides, isn't there?
Yes, yeah.
So of course you're playing a variety of roles when it comes to theatre. Did you find it more difficult to play a variety of roles on TV, or did you find it fairly easy to get to
cast within a certain range of what you can do, I haven't seen this episode. I've looked at it now, of course, it's so long ago. First thing I thought was, my hair looks jolly nice.
Yes.
I think I was going to be Dal Sassoon in those days, and that sort of long, very straight, streaky look, And
of course, you have a lovely circus costume as
yes. God, I wouldn't look any good in that now, I'm afraid.
And I'm looking at the episode. There are certain scenes where Ian Hendry is sweating under the studio lights. So I assume being in a nice flowing costume like that, kept you cool, and was quite practical, really. For
yes, well, women don't sweat as much anyway, do they? Actually,
they don't seem to know. No. So you have a scene in a moment with a guy called Kenneth J. Warren, who plays the character Zippo.
Good actor. He was Australian, wasn't he, Ken? Was he an Australian? No. Anyway, he was a very good actor. I saw him in lots of things. He was a good theatre actor and a good heavy,
And of course appeared in a number of Avengers episodes, Persuaders, a bit like Edward in that respect. He appeared in lots of other sort of episodes of the series.
I sort of see Edwin in that sort of DJ or a sort of white tie and tails. Edwin was always very elegant.
Yes. Yeah.
Patrician looking, wasn't he?
Oh yeah. And I think that's why perhaps these things last the test of time, is that they have very good actors, character actors, interesting faces. It's very well cast. These shows
still at this point had what they called Friday night was a Thursday night theatre. We did a lot of plays on television, just a play. Rehearsed did, but they weren't recorded. Sadly, there was some really. I did lovely things with that. I used to love that. People like Ben Watford and all that. there were so many good actors and marvelous plays, and everyone would sit around and watch a play that was only on once. Everything's so different now. There's such a huge variety of choices now. I've got great big television. I'm looking at it over there. Great big television here. You can play anything. There's so many channels, so many things. So there's no feeling that everybody's watching the same thing anymore, is there? And certainly the young people don't watch the same things.
No, and I think somebody's just put Joseph in the audience just said Kenneth was Australian. Yes,
he was, wasn't he? That's right. Yes, I think he came over here with a marvelous Australian play. Actually, I'm sure he did. 4 of them. He and there were 2 men and 2 women came over and stayed. Yeah, I should look that up. Anyway, somebody has looked it up.
Yes.
Next thing you can do is, of course, any question you ask, you blah 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 blah. And I am able to do all this. Poor people of my age who can't work these machines, life is becoming extremely difficult, I was at the theatre last night. Your theatre tickets are online. Everything you do is online. Banking's online. I met a woman the other day. I live in Hammersmith. I met a woman the other day. She said, "I've had to come all the way from Barnes because there are no banks there." And I said, "Well, why don't you bank online?" She said, "Oh, I don't know. I don't know how to do that." I think they should do much more to give lessons to our generation, which grew up without any of this, because it's becoming increasingly difficult to do anything without doing it online, isn't it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yes, it's
Like a parking ticket to do today, it's all online. How would you do it? The post is so terrible anyway. By the time you posted off things, our post is bad here. It's yours.
oh yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think it's everywhere. It's days and days.
I know. So anyway,
No, so it's very, very,
I
very
think
good.
the government should bring in a lot of lessons for old people and how to. They get frightened of it. They don't understand it.
Well, yeah, no, I think unless you have reason to use technology, I mean, young people only know it because they have reason
That's
to
what they do all the
use.
time. I mean, they go, they're so quick. Anyway,
Absolutely, yeah. Just talking about the episode, because as you said, a lot of TV that you would have done would not have been recorded on any level. It was just accepted that it was going out live. Of course, the Ian Hendry Avengers were recorded, but like a lot of TV shows, Doctor Who back then, it was wiped, re-recorded, chucked on a skip. And this episode was missing for many years until 2001 when it was rediscovered. It was discovered strangely at the UCLA in Los Angeles, their archives. They had this episode.
So who found it then?
I think it was just somebody, well, somebody might know the exact person, but I think it's just probably somebody just lost episode hunters of
Well,
things.
how many of these did Ian do? But how long was it before Honor came in to do? Which Honor was the first, wasn't she?
Yeah, so this was the year before. This was the year before Honor came in, and it was very much Ian Hendry as the lead, and Patrick was the.
Yes, but then Patrick stayed on, didn't he, with Honor, didn't he?
Yes, basically, Ian Hendry was going to come back and do another series, but they had an actors' strike or various strikes prevented.
Yes, there was one. I remember I was in America at the time. Yes, it was nice.
Yeah,
So
and
not long after this, you see, I married this year. I got married in 1961, and my husband got at the end of the next year, my husband got a big film in Hollywood, and we went to America for a year. So I did nothing. I wasn't allowed to work there. He got a special green card, and anyway, I had a lovely baby. So I sat in the Californian sunshine for a year.
Oh, lovely. You never felt the urge to go to America, or you always wanted to be in the UK.
Yeah, but it was very difficult if you didn't have a green card or something in those days. You had to be asked to do a job, and we had a lovely life there. I was very happy just to look after my baby.
And as I was saying, the strike went on for months and months and months, and then when they were ready to go again, Ian was unavailable doing a film.
He did the Lotus Eaters, didn't he? He did a long series with Wanda Bentham when they were out in Greece. Remember that one?
Yeah, I think he was doing a film just after so it was a conflict, so he couldn't come back, and then they thought about who could replace him, and of course Honor Blackman came along, and the rest is history.
She's a nice person. I knew Honor. She was good theatre actress too. Really. I do still say actress. You see, I find it hard to describe myself as an actor, but there we are.
Yeah. My temptation is just actor, actress. Yes, I think that's.
I understand why we have to be called actors. You don't want to be men anyway.
Yes, like when you.
It makes me sound terribly old-fashioned. I do know that.
No, I agree entirely with you. I think it's sort of going a bit too far, really, in many respects. But I never saw on stage, but I did meet her at a couple of signing events, and I thought she was lovely.
Yes, I worked with her husband too, Maurice Kaufman. In fact, he was in The Man Who Came to Dinner, and just getting married then.
And so we're saying about Ian Hendry. Was there any other memories you had of Ian that you wanted to share?
Oh, goodness me. Well, he was such when I first met him, you see, at the Central School, I was 17. He was 20. I guess he was a bit older than me, wasn't he? He must have been 20 or 21. And he'd been in the army. He'd done his national service. So he was awfully grown up, and used to wear his RE tie and all that. And yes, he was a big smoker. I do remember that. He was very nice. I mean, we never were a couple. I was never romantically attached to him, but I was very, very fond of him. He was terribly masculine. A lot of the boys, they were a little bit less so. But he was actually, at the time I was at Central, nearly all the men were, the girls were all rather middle class like me, and being paid for by daddy, whereas all the men tended to be out of the services or having saved up money or something to go.
He always strikes me when I see him in old interview clips. He always seems to be quite a serious person. And was he also a serious actor? Was he?
Oh yes, and a very good actor. This play we did by Jean Ennui called Dinner with the Family. He was marvelous in it. We played husband and wife in that too. We did a long tour. We started Oxford, then we did a tour, and then we played at what is now the Noel Coward Theatre for 6 months. He was excellent, full of energy. He was very butch, he was very strong and excellent, very good vocal.
Could he also be playful and jokey and sort of?
Oh yes, absolutely. Absolutely. We did a great tour when we were students. We toured all over with Private Lives. We were awfully young to do it. And yes, it was always good fun.
Yeah, Private Lives is a very good play. There was one actor also that I should mention, Andy Alston, who plays Tuick, who's the very sort of big, typical sort of like strong man of the circus, and he attacks Ian Hendry and he's in
those scenes, I don't think.
He's in 2 of your scenes, but very briefly. So it's probably.
I don't. Sorry, I don't remember much about it. What happened to him then? Well,
I think he died fairly young. I want to say. I think I did my research.
With me now, are they all dead? Most of them are, aren't they?
And
Hafner and Edwin, they're all gone long ago.
And I think one of the things that struck me, I think, doing research for this.
Isn't that actor in it too, Howard? What's he called?
Howard. Let's have a quick look. Howard. Gorney as Superintendent Lewis. Yes, Howard Gorney.
No, that's not what I mean.
No. I can't see any Howard in the cast.
Oh, is he? Okay.
So he was the superintendent in that.
Right. No, there was somebody in it, I think, who then went to do a lot of things with Joan Littlewood at the theatre workshop.
There's Ian Gardner, who's
Gurney, isn't it? Howard Gurney, wasn't he in it?
So Howard Gurney, yes.
Right, Howard Gurney, yes. He then became a very strong kind of working class, leading that whole movement with Joan Littlewood. As I remember, he was that very good.
And so this is actually only one of 2 episodes that they did that didn't have Patrick McGee in it at all. He was, I think, either perhaps it's having a break, or and I think again because it was very much Ian's show, because Ian did a series before this called Police Surgeon.
Yes,
that was cancelled, and then they were looking for another vehicle for him, and the Avengers came along. So it was very much his show. So I think Patrick would pop in and out of it in terms of he wouldn't always be the driving force. Sometimes a bit more like the M character, I suppose, in Bond, as opposed to the joint lead. So maybe the episode just didn't feature him. Just weren't written that way. Did you ever work with Patrick or encounter him at all?
No, I didn't. I admired him. No, I wish I had done. No, he was good.
And other thing that we said, a couple of the actors that we've mentioned, Edwin and Kenneth, they had popped back into the Avengers in the subsequent series as the show evolved.
Yeah, right.
I assume it was just one of those shows that never came kind of knocking again on your door.
No.
Would you have liked to have gone have gone back into it.
Sure, I always liked. Yes, why not?
Yeah, yeah.
I wouldn't have come back as a Russian trapeze artist or whatever I was, would you?
Oh yeah, all the actors would obviously come back in completely different roles, and interestingly,
it's
Ian
more,
Hen-
it's more difficult for women to do in a funny sort of way. Yes.
so it's more difficult to come back into a series. Did you kind of say, or
as a woman, and aren't you? I don't know. Why do I say that? No, perhaps not. Anyway.
But well, that's an interesting thing, because when you're joining a TV series, you're kind of coming in with an established cast.
Yes.
Is there always a bit of, or how am I going to get on with? Was that part of the joy of being an actor, the constant change and the excitement?
I had, yes. Well, we could get into this in a minute, but I have done 2 series on television. Anyway, let's get on to those a bit later, shall we?
Yes, absolutely, yes. Remember, you mentioned briefly at the beginning, Ingrid Hafner. What was Ingrid like? She said you worked for a couple of times.
Very nice. I did work with her other times, and she was friend of friends. She was very charming, Scottish, I think, wasn't she, Ingrid? I think.
I think she was, yes.
She was a very nice and a good actress. I thought she played she's quite more low key, you know. She very often played these sort of assistants, and I'm not denigrating her when I say that. I mean, she played serious women, you know. She is in this one, isn't she? She's the doctor's assistant, isn't she?
She is. She appeared in 19 episodes of the series. Not all in huge roles like this, but she was always around.
Yes.
And coincidentally, this just a bit more trivia. This episode is only one of 3 full episodes that exist still from that series.
Is that
they were all lost. The last one turned up, I think, 2016. So there is hope that maybe others will come in. But we
have a group of people here tonight who are interested in the whole of the Avengers. You mean they're interested in the whole series? Yeah. So this is a slight oddity. This very early. This is one of the first ones, is it?
Yes, I think it's sort of episode 5 or so in
the first series.
In order. Of course, series would be. But because it was going out live, of course, it would be sort of going out in order. So it was quite early it would be in the first half of the run, certainly.
And then when did they pick up with the other ones then? When they got filmed, or what does he say?
So yes, Joseph saying The Frighteners is 1 episode, and The Tunnel of Fear, they're the 2 episodes that also exist in addition to this one. Oh, this is episode 6.
Ian's in those as well, is he? Right.
Yes. Nevin says it's episode 6. So Ian was in the first 26, which of course we only have 3 left, and then got 20 minutes of the first episode, and that is literally it. And then Patrick and Honor come in from going forward. So it's sort of sometimes gets a bit forgotten.
They're all kept, are they? You've got all of those.
Everything from the second series onwards survives, which I suppose is quite lucky if you think about things like Doctor Who.
Are you going through all these then? Is this going to be your
I've done quite a few of them. So this is the only one that I think I'll probably do of the Ian Hendry series. But I've done some of the Honor ones and Dalarigs and the New Avengers as well.
Right.
So I think the fans love each different series for different reasons, because they're all kind of although they all come under the umbrella of the Avengers, they're all quite distinct shows. Yeah.
But of course, I think most people, if you said the Avengers, would think of Honor Blackman and Diana Rigg, wouldn't they? You know, because they made such stars, didn't they? Both of them.
Oh yeah, yes, absolutely. And Ian Hendry did come back into the Avengers in an episode of the New Avengers in the 70s, but he didn't play Dr. Keel, which I think might have been a bit of a lost opportunity. He played somebody else, but there's always been a really good continuity in terms of actors in the series. I was wondering what you thought of, so having watched the episode now 62 years since it was done, how do you feel it holds up?
Gosh, It's of a different era, isn't it? I mean, it's quite simple, really. I think the series have got so much more violent. Well, actually, there's quite a lot of violence in it, but it seems like an innocent beginning of a thing somehow, compared to what you see now, some of the scenes now that we get and the violence and things. It's much more destructive now, isn't it? I mean, it seems like a fantasy, doesn't it? You know what I mean? It's got a kind of fantastic air about it, hasn't it? The one I...
Yeah, I think this one has a sort of a gritty realism, doesn't it? I think this episode, and it's it's all playing out in real time because, of course, it's live. It has to, so it's sort of it's the pace is different to, say, modern shows or the cutting and jumping about. So very much like a play kind of filmed in many respects. Sometimes I do have a lady called Elaine Spooner, who is the daughter of Dennis Spooner, who wrote this episode and quite a lot of classic TV. She's not in the audience tonight, but I'm sure she will watch the recording on YouTube, because I think the script is very good. I think there's lots of very good the dialogue. The characters are very well sort of fashioned and realized. So I think it's quite a nice piece of vintage TV that we're looking at here. And so you would kind of agree that
been in it. Yes. Yeah. I had no idea that they'd all been lost, I must say.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's remarkable. We've got this episode, because what are the odds of the only 3 existing, and one of them is yours? So it's is there anything else that you mentioned? A few things that weren't recorded, but is there anything that you did that to be wiped that you
lots of things. I don't think Shadow Squad exists anymore, does it? Or No Hiding Place, or all those early things. And of course, all the plays I did lots of Saturday night plays, whatever they were certainly not kept.
No.
First, I mean, in all my early stuff, I would say does not exist anymore. No.
I think there's sort of, now we have the sense that everything is kept, everything is stored, but I think
but it's easier to do that now because they do it online, don't they?
Well, that was one of the reasons why they junked everything, was partly because of the massive space it took to store these huge. So they thought, well, and they thought no one's going to want to see them again, so they kind of just got rid of them. It made sense. A
lovely play called Loyalties by John Galsworthy. That was with Kenneth Griffiths. All those sort of things I did, I don't think exist at all now. I went to play with Robert Stevens. It was marvelous. A lot of big, because the film work was television, was just starting, really. We only had 2 channels, hadn't we, at this point? We'd got the Beeb and ITV. I mean, it's only just the Beeb when I started, of course. Then it became ITV. When did that start? End of the 60s, was it, or no?
Well, this would have been
the early 60s.
Yeah, this would have been ITV. So this what we would now call ITV. So
certainly when I started in 1955, it was only the BBC.
Yeah, so this is 61, so it must have sort of sprung up
2 or 3 years before that.
Yeah, this is fairly early days of ITV. Yeah.
We didn't have them on our sets. We only had BBC sets to watch things for a long time. It was a big thing. Suddenly ITV is going to be on as well.
Do you find that when you did colour productions that the technicalities of making it were a bit different? Because obviously the lighting is, of course, different in terms of, because you're working in the black and white medium. Was there any kind of differences between black and white and colour?
I don't remember any differences. No.
I think the if you look at the colour Avengers versus these, there's a very different sort of feel to them in terms, but it's also other things are changing at the same time, of course.
I did a film. I was, funnily enough, this is a memory week for me because I've just done a thing about Room at the Top, which is a film I was in.
Oh, yeah.
Yesterday I did a broadcast about it, actually, because they're reissuing it and they're putting interview with anyone who's left, with not many of us, on the front of the thing.
Yeah.
And that was black and white, of course. And my husband did a very famous film then called Look Back in Anger, and that's black and white. I mean, there's something wonderful about black and white cinema, actually. You know, when you look at it now, it has a kind of gritty quality to it, doesn't it?
Oh yes, I think that is echoed in the TV. That there's black and white as well. I think the Avengers fans probably most of them prefer the black and white stuff. The first series of Daniel Wigg was in black and white, so it was only the last couple of series of the Avengers that were in color, and there is something about that medium, about the look and the feel.
Well, like a documentary, you know, it was like the real thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, I think that's a good way of putting it.
Now color is amazing, of course, and the effects and everything. I mean, I'm a member of BAFTA, you know, so I see a lot of films, and some of these new things with the color and the effects, and it's just dazzling. You know, you think how far the whole cinema thing has come in the last 60 years. It's amazing.
Oh yeah, yes, it's dramatically different, isn't it? I was just wondering when you watch your works, particularly something that's 40, 50, 60 years, does it feel like you're watching yourself, or is it somebody else? Did you kind of feel, how does it feel to kind of?
Well, of course, yes. No, it's me. It's nice to look so young, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're very aware of it when you're old, seeing yourself as a young person. Yeah, it's recognizable. I mean, but some of the things I did, not this, because I've seen this, but sometimes people ask you about things you've been in, and I saw a clip of something not so long ago, and I honestly couldn't remember doing it. You may find that hard to believe, but, you know, I saw something that was, what was it I saw? Something I'd done, and I was speaking a foreign language and everything. I couldn't actually remember being on the set. I do with this very well because I'm in the outfit and I was with Ian and all that. Of course, I remember that. But, you know, when you do a lot, I did such a lot of things at one time. You think, God, where was I when I did that? You know. But this one I certainly remember, yes.
Yeah, there's certain things that jump out because of the people you were with or the quality of production and things of that nature. So has the Avengers come back into your life? Of course, people like myself must contact you reasonably often, but do you find that the Avengers is one of those things that you constantly get recognized for?
No.
Because I think I've seen some trading cards I think you signed, and there's been few sort of, so you,
yes,
occasionally it comes into your life, but it's not been a sort of like
yes, I did a signing on Saturday night for the Sweeney.
Oh yeah.
It's weird. It's all come up this very week. This and the Sweeney, I think. What was I saying? Sorry, what did you ask me?
About the Avengers sort of.
I don't. I mean, our children, of course, our grandchildren. I've got grown-up grandchildren now. They like looking at these old things, you know. God, fancy Granny in that outfit, and you know.
I suppose it's quite surprising that people are interested, I suppose, in things that you've done 50, 60 years ago. It's sort of yeah.
But my husband gets it much more than I do because he did a lot of big films. You know, my husband's called Gary Raymond, and he did a lot of big films. And for some reason, they're all around now. Jason the Argonauts, El Cid, and Suddenly Last Summer. All these things are still being shown all the time for some reason. And The Greatest Story Ever Told, it's always on at Easter. So, you know, this thing like the Avengers, it's not been seen for 60 years. No, people don't know it. Unless they're film buffs like your guys are, you know, TV buffs.
Oh yeah, I think the Avengers is always going to be popular, but I think people think of its hundreds of thousands of fans. I suppose it's realistically sort of tens of thousands of people around the world.
Yeah.
So it's a small number, I think people perhaps realize, but they are very dedicated to the show. Just to come off the Avengers, just to sort of start sort of wrap up. You mentioned the Sweeney. I was wondering, whether you remember working with John Ford and Dennis Waterman.
Well, I wasn't in the scenes. I didn't have very much to do in it. And I knew John, but I wasn't with either of them. And I worked with Dennis later on. So, I mean, I wasn't with either of them in the scenes, but I mean, I knew them as people, but I didn't work with them.
Yeah, yeah. And of course, you were the founder of the London Shakespeare Company. I just wanted to ask you how that came about and the journey.
77, we started that, and we did it for nearly 20 years. And I was a founding member, and then I took over running it, and we played in over 60 countries all across the world. Japan, right through the Far East, Middle East. Played a lot in the Middle East. We played in Baghdad and Mosul and all these places. But now we're so destroyed. And Africa, all over Africa and India. It was the most wonderful time. And across to Canada. It was founded in the first place by the British Council.
Yeah.
Spreading English learning throughout the world. I think that's all been cut back a bit now, sadly. They ran all the language schools, and then they would bring in the plays like the Shakespeare's, which was a backup for that, you know. And so they were wonderful tours. There would be 8 or 9 of us in the company. And we traveled with only 3 trunks. We had all our costumes, our sets, and everything. Our sets were things like great big waving pieces of silk, you know, stuff that you could easily carry. And we just would play 3 or 4 places in each place. On we would go to the next place. We were wonderfully treated. We were always put in wonderful hotels. And although we would often play in very extraordinary places, especially in Africa, and a lot of kids would come in the back of these mammy wagons, you know, to see Shakespeare. And what was thrilling was that a lot of these kids who knew nothing about Shakespeare and everything absolutely adored. They loved it. It was thrilling, you know, to think that Shakespeare could, especially Macbeth, of course, because so many were in countries with terrible tyrants charged, you know.
Yes.
So that was absolutely thrilling. It was the most, it went on nearly 20 years. And I had some wonderful actors in it. And, you know, the tours would last about 8 weeks. Country to country, in and out of the airports. Who's going to pull the trunks? Who's going to pack up this, you know? And we had wonderful stage managers with us always. And it was a wonderful life, really.
I was talking to an actor. I think it was Frank Bowie. He was
very much a part of it.
He
wonderful.
Yeah.
I've done lots with Frank. I mean, we did a lot of other tours afterwards. He wrote a play for my husband, myself, and him, and we did a marvelous Brian Friel play. So I've done a hell of a lot of touring around. Getting the show on, doing it, packing up.
And I think he was saying that he did a production of, I think it was Macbeth, in one of those countries, as you say, it had kind of a dictatorship. And for some reason, the censors hadn't checked the play or had, and it went, and people were very sort of this, you know, they recognized, you know, the themes that they're tyrant in this work. And then the second performance,
somebody in the wings with the rifle. Is that what you're going to tell me?
Well, I think I'm not sure you mentioned that, but he said that basically it was kind of sort of shut down from. They sort of realised that the content, and then they shut it down.
Yes. Oh, Frank was wonderful. He was in a lot of the things. What did you interview Frank about then? What plays?
Predominantly his theatre work, because again that's a big passion of mine. But so you were saying that.
I mean, I still see him a lot. I'm seeing him next week. Yes.
Oh, good. Pleased to give him my best. So you're saying that there were people with guns and stuff, and from the set.
Somebody in the one night wandered onto the back of the stage with a gun, you know, because or some person was in the audience. I mean, we've got pictures of us having drinks with Idi Amin and things. I mean, when I think about it now, you know, because wherever we were always entertained by the ambassador, or in Lesotho, in Swazi, there was a queen, you know, and in Botswana, there was it Zambia? You know, the queen would come and sit in a great big chair at the front. And it was an amazing experience, really.
So were the African places you played perhaps some of the most memorable?
Oh, yes. Because they were huge. I mean, you could play to 2,000 people, you know, and we would set up anywhere. We could sit up in a field in front of a thing, or then we would get to the Middle East and we'd be playing these frightfully grand. They were much more difficult to play, incidentally. The Middle East with the very grand Abu Dhabi hotels and things, you know, with the air conditioning and the chandeliers and things. It didn't fit our style nearly so well. And they would have the aircon on, so cold. You can't play comedy in a cold place. Yeah, it was interesting. And we were out in the war. I mean, when we were in Baghdad once, we drove up to Mosul. I remember there was shooting and bombs and things. I mean, we were really Basra with extraordinary. So many of these places have completely bombed to ruins now, you know.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's
Awful.
yeah, there's so much upheaval, isn't there, in the world, particularly now. It's always been the case, sadly, but it's
Look at these things on television now. I mean, it's just a lot of collapsed concrete. What is going to happen? Who's going to rebuild all these countries?
Yeah, I know.
It's one we've been looking at tonight. It's terrible, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely, yes. But I think that the importance of drama, I think, is highlighted, I think, in situations like this, where it's about sort of the importance of stories and perhaps putting a magnifying glass over certain issues like they had with Shakespeare, and to sort of, do you find that it has a very positive influence, drama, on people, perhaps people that fans that you meet? Do you find it how important it is to people, some of your work?
Of course, yes, I do. Certainly did when we did those tours.
Yeah. And one of the TV productions I wanted to mention was Scarlet, which was a mini series, kind of a sequel to Gone with the Wind.
What did I play in Scarlet? Oh, who was I? I was a sort of social. God, who was I in Scarlet? I did 3 big miniseries. I did the second bit, the 2 Mrs. Grenvilles. I did with Aunt Margaret and Claudette Colbert, and I did Scarlet. Oh yes, I was on a horse. Yes, I was rather, as I always am, a rather grand person, being a bit snobbish and English and grand.
You played a character called Lady Morland.
There you are, Lady Morland, yes. Yeah. With an old friend, Brian Bedford, English actor, now died in America many years ago. Yes, and then I also did Victoria and Albert. I played Peter Ustinov's wife. Queen, whoever I was, Queen Charlotte, was she? He dies and then Victoria comes to the throne. It was a very good series. Yes.
And what was Peter Ustinov like?
Oh, he was charming. I mean, he was a real brick, you know, because he wasn't in good health. This was towards the end of his life, I guess. One of the last things he did, probably. And he got a very bad leg, big swollen sort of ankle kind of thing. And so when everybody broke at the end of a scene and went away and everything, he had to stay there, you know, because he couldn't get back to the dressing room or whatever. I mean, all these extras and things would come up and say, "Oh, Peter, tell us that story about something," and he would launch into, you know, because he's famous for his funny jokes. He'd launch into these great stories about all the funny things that happened. You know, he was a great raconteur, wasn't he? And he would do it at the drop of a hat, and he was wonderful. Not wonderful to act with, I have to say. He was a sort of one-man band, really. You know, he absolutely decided what he was and who he was, and his wife wasn't. You know, it's difficult to explain. I mean, he was a wonderful performer, but he very much had it all worked out, what he was.
Yeah, what he was doing, and
particularly concerned with what other people were doing, you know. But he was
more focused on his.
I really admired him. Thought he was terrific. Yeah.
Of course, excluding your husband, but do you have a favourite actor that you've worked with in your career?
Well, Frank's one of them, certainly. Well, Ian too. At the beginning, Ian was a great friend. Yes. Yeah, and my husband and I have done lots of things together. We played in Regent's Park together as Oberon and Titania. I think that's the first time we worked together. Then we've done lots of tours here to America, to all over the world, really. Yeah. And I did do this long series, you know, called Family Affairs. Did I say that to you? I did it for 2 years.
Oh, yes.
I was the grandmother of the family. Had a very important part. But after 2 years, this man called, well, anyway, came in and decided we must all be. We were too boring as a family. He wanted some more sensational people. And funny enough, there was this boy in it all the time, this young black boy, wonderful. He came in, and it was very early days for all this. And he used to come into the makeup and say, when this is over, I'm going to the United States and I'm going to get a job there. And we all used to go, oh dear, not a chance. And not laugh at it, but he was just a lad from North London. And of course, it was Idris Elba. And look the success he made. He's become the most colossal, wonderful star and a marvelous leader for African actors, hasn't he? And the whole, he's done such a lot to help everybody, and he's really serious guy. But he was just a kid. Anyway, that was nice. That was 2 years, you see. But for some reason, there don't seem to be any photographs or memories of that left anywhere.
Well,
I don't think it's been carried on online. I was with Ken Farrington, who I mean, who was in Coronation Street. He played my husband. Oh, I'm very fond of him. I had very nice scenes with Ken, and I still see him.
Oh, yeah.
He's down near us.
Yeah.
So he was another favourite, certainly.
Oh, wonderful. And I believe that Muriel behind you is actually from a production, I believe.
Yes, that my husband was in at the National, called Sunday in the Park with George. And you see, it's the Seurat, if those of you who know the musical, it all takes place of the painter Seurat, who is painting the Grand Jatte. And I don't know if you can see it better, but anyway, it goes right across our wall. It's about 40 years old. And when the show was finished at the National, they were throwing it out. So Gary said to them, well, could I have it? And they said, yeah. So he gave them 50 quid and put it in the back of the car. And we've had it ever since. We had it in our other house, our last house. And we thought, well, and we brought it here, and it went exactly on the wall behind us. Our children came, and it's only pinned up, it's canvas, But it's so nice because we also live on the river. So we got the river one side and the French river this side.
Oh,
so
yes, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Did you encounter Timothy Dalton while you were on Scarlet, or maybe?
Yes, we did. He was very nice. He was.
Yeah.
Yes, and of course we'd known Vanessa a lot early on too. Yes, Timothy Dalton was extremely nice. We all stayed in a house in Ireland when we were doing Scarlet. Yes, he was charming.
And did you? Diana Rigg was in Victoria and Albert, but I don't know whether you saw on that. But did you?
I never met Diana Rigg.
No.
I admired her, but I never met her. No.
I mean, I did thankfully see her on stage a couple of times, and a fantastic actress. I think she had a bit of a sort of a love and hate relationship with the Avengers and Bond and some of her big.
Well, because I think she was probably a more serious actress than that, was she? I don't know. And she was, I don't know. She did some wonderful classic things. She did, what's the big thing she did on the stage? She's big Greek classic. I can't remember what it was. Anyway, but she was a very highly skilled and very good actress.
Oh yeah, yes. I think perhaps it's a little, maybe a bit frustrating sometimes when you have a fantastic body of work, fantastic range as an actor, and all they seem to talk about is Bond, the Avengers Bond. It's sort of.
I know.
I know when she died and they were doing the obituaries on the news, it was just pictures of her in Avengers and Bond. I'm sure she would have hated that.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah.
She was very good in that Victorian Albert, wasn't she?
Yes. And she's very good in
the aunt, she was something, she was somebody was looking after the young Victoria, wasn't she?
I think she was. I'll just quickly remind myself. But and she also, of course, was fantastic in Game of Thrones towards the end of her life. She had a great role in that. She was the Baroness Lizen. So,
but she'd come from Germany, didn't she, with Victoria? I think to look after her. Because Victoria was just young. Yeah.
Yeah. I was just wondering, do you have a favourite project, either sort of theatre or TV, one that perhaps you would like to be mostly remembered for? Yes, that's good.
I think probably the best part I've ever had, but it was in the theatre, and it was with Frank and with my husband, and it was a wonderful Brian Friel play called Faith Healer, and it's 3 It's 3 people and you're on stage on your own
Hmm.
for half an hour, which is quite challenging, actually.
Yeah.
It's the only time I've done just one person. But it was so beautifully written. I think of all the things I've done, that was quite a memory, really.
Hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I just toured it here and we took it abroad. I can't remember where we took it now. There's a whole circuit of theatres, you know, that take shows all over England, all over in America too. Yeah, and I also liked another one I did like that with my husband about Mrs. Patrick Campbell and Shaw.
Hmm.
And we did a lot of touring with that too. I mean, they're quite a challenge, those shows, because you are the whole show. Do you know what I mean? You've got to you get there and you present it, and you've nobody else to shelter behind. In other words, it's you up there.
Oh yeah, there's nowhere to hide, is there? Sort of.
No, absolutely.
Yeah. When you do sort of long theatre runs, and you're doing 7, 8 shows a week, does it ever become dull or routine, or are you always kind of sort of playing with the
I haven't
character?
done enough long runs to say that.
No, no.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
But I suppose you're always sort of tweaking it a little bit, aren't you? Performance to performance, and
Yes.
so it's.
Because after all, the audience is different, isn't it?
Hmm.
Yeah.
And is that the restriction then with TV, and that just you get one shot at it and it's captured forever?
And you look at that and go, "Oh no, why didn't I do that?" Or something, you know.
Yeah.
Too late, of
Hmm.
course.
And of course now we're getting a lot of theatre that's actually filmed, isn't it? And then in
Yes, isn't that odd? So many plays now are made from films,
yeah, and
based on films, more and more. Weird.
yeah, getting a lot of situations where we're getting sort of lots of musicals and Dirty Dancing and others so there's sort of Bodyguard being made into a musical as well. And I
Yes,
think what's good is that a lot of them are being recorded on stage and then broadcast in cinemas. So there is a recording of it, so which is quite nice.
yeah. Some of the big musicals. The one for my husband was a marvelous one at the National called Follies, which was the most marvelous Sondheim musical. I went to see it so many times. I was sat in the middle of the front row, and there was a marvelous singer in the first time they did it called Philip Quast. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. He's a wonderful Australian singer and actor. And then the last night, I'd been there so often, at their final bow, I saw him just go, look at me and go, you know, he'd have a little special little bow for me, because I'd been such a loyal groupie going all the time. It's marvelous music. Have you ever seen it? It's online. You can get it.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet, I'm ashamed to say, but I will look it up.
Look out for it, yes.
And do you have a favorite play that you did? One that you think, oh gosh, I wish that was filmed or that existed? Or
Well, I did do Private Lives early on. Apart from doing it with Ian, I did it at the Sheffield at the Crucible. That's a wonderful part for a woman. I see they're doing it now. I mean, Patricia Hodge and Nigel Havers are doing it now.
Oh yes, they are, aren't they? Yeah.
Though they're years too old for it, but they're both the right people to do it. I think that's why it's made, you know, they're both sophisticated, kind of brittle sort of people. I mean, Noel Coward's a marvelous writer. I love doing that. And I don't know what I don't know. I don't suppose I shall do anything else now, probably. I don't know. I did a film last year, actually, but it didn't come out. I played some rather bitchy old mother-in-law at a wedding up in Herefordshire. It was nice. Our granddaughter now is starting. We went to see her in a musical last night at Vaudeville. It was a workshop, a workshop, and they're allowed to play 3 Mondays at the Vaudeville. I suppose they don't play the show there on a Monday, so you can hire it, and it was very good, very good. So she's. What else can I tell you?
Well, I suppose so. Your family has sort of followed in that acting tradition.
Yes, our daughter's in the theatre, and our son-in-law Ben Miles doing very well. He's in Napoleon. I'm going to see that next week.
Oh, the new Ridley Scott.
He did all those marvelous Hilary Mantel things, you know, the Cromwell things.
Oh, Wolf Hall and things like that. Yeah.
He did all those as the main character. Is very good. So we're all still a link. Yeah.
In the blood. Yes.
Yes. Yes.
So I assume you, as you said, it's a much more harder industry than it was perhaps when you started.
Wildly harder, because
Yeah.
when we started, there were all these rep companies all over the country, and we all went and played. You know, it was such good training. You do 3 months, 6 months, a year maybe in a rep company, playing a different thing every 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or actually some of them were a weekly rep. Played in the day, you played at night, in the daytime you're rehearsing the next show. Imagine, in a week.
Yeah, yeah.
An awful lot of muck-ups, of course. But, you know, that it was such good training for actors, and they used to do that. And now there's nothing like that, you know.
No.
In the music, and most of the West End is musicals now. So if you're not a singer, it's quite difficult to get into a play.
Yeah, I think, and again, a lot of it is plays seem to be stars, isn't it? Somebody that people think will sell seats, you know. So it's
yes. Oh, I think, and honestly, there's so many drama schools now. I mean, really, when I was at drama school, there was RADA, Central, and the Webber Douglas. Those were the three. And then now there are, you know, multiple, and they're all churning out people. Jolly good, but the competition is tremendous.
So if there's anybody watching this that would like to go into acting, is there
But
any?
if they really want to do it, they're going to do it. You know, that's the answer. But
Is there a bit of advice you might give them?
You don't get the jobs. It's very disappointing. You know, of course, it's disappointing because you set your heart on, and it's not something you can really calculate. It's not like working for a firm where if you work very hard, you're going to get moved up and thing. It doesn't happen like that. You know, it's just a lot of chance in it, a lot of luck.
So it's about persistence. Sorry, I was just saying the secret is maybe persistence, isn't it? So just keep going and.
Yes, but then there's the money. I mean, most young actors now seem to work at other jobs as well. They work in banks and because actually we've got a great shortage of employment at the moment in this country. So at least that is easy for them. I know a lot of young actors go and work in banks and things. I mean, and they're all washing up in the back of the coffee shop. You know, there are quite a lot of decent jobs they can get. But still, you have to be prepared. And I think drama schools now say you must be prepared for to work somewhere else, you know, to keep body and soul together.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Still waiting for the.
Yeah.
But, you know, people see television and they think, oh, I could do that. That's easy. They're just sitting there. They're just, you know. But it's not, of course. It's a long process.
Well, I think there's a big difference between what people can do and what they get the chance to do in terms of what, you know.
Of course it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just wondering, just to finish off, what was your favourite Shakespeare part?
Beatrice in Much Ado About Nothing. I did a big tour of this country with it, yes. It's a marvellous part for a woman.
Yeah. And you found Shakespeare played all over the world. I suppose different audiences got different things, but it is universal, isn't it, really?
Yes. To the English-speaking world, yes. Well, actually, Japan, we played a lot in Japan. We were sponsored by the Tokyo Shimbun, the newspaper. And we used to start off a month in Japan. Beautiful theatres. And I mean, the Japanese were so industrious. Our stage manager would say, could we have it, you know, and they'd be off running to get it before he practically said what it was. You know, these great, big, wonderful Shimbun theatres. They were extraordinary. And then we go to Africa and we're playing, you know, out under a make tree or something, you know. That was the real fun of it in a way, was the huge variety.
Yeah. I think when I spoke to Frankie, it might have been in Japan that it was culturally not acceptable to laugh. And if you've got a comedy, you're not getting the responses because of the culturally, the audience behave differently. Is those kind of things difficult to sort of
one place, Gary and I went to Nigeria for 6 weeks. We played 42 performances driving across this road. It's a long time ago, and we just roll up to school and do The Merchant of Venice we did, and Macbeth. And you know, there'd be nothing there, you know. A lot of them didn't have the running water. And said, I'm washing my hair in a bucket and getting the nice glam outfit on and everything to go on stage. And there was one place we went where every time the audience laughed, the man got up and blew a whistle to stop them.
Oh.
Ludicrous.
Mm.
They weren't supposed to laugh. He thought they should be serious because it was Shakespeare.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. Oh, it's all part of the fun, isn't it? And sort of talking about laughing, was there any sort of, did you have situations sometimes where you might fluff a line or somebody else did on stage, and is there any sort of memorable sort of?
Oh yes, and creepy crawlies on the stage. Somebody was lying there, and there's beetles coming up on them. Yes, it was you had to be tough, but it was so rewarding, really.
I suppose
in a grand cultural way. I mean, it's just that the fact that Shakespeare could entertain young people that knew nothing about him, or, had not been trained to know what Shakespeare was, or what he was such a great playwright that people responded.
And it's being performed so differently, isn't it? So it used to be sort of very grand, but now it's sort of, with people like Kenneth Branagh, it's becoming a bit more natural in delivery. And
some very good on television just now. I don't know if you've seen them. The Hollow Crown has been on again. So the history plays, very good. The language is extraordinary.
Yeah. Do you have a favourite sort of behind the scenes moment, or
any favourite?
A behind the scenes moment, or perhaps during a production or a company where it was really?
I tell you what, I remember being back. It was very moving. I was backstage. I think we were playing Macbeth, were we, in Zambia? We were waiting to start, and suddenly the whole audience stood and sang the Zambian national anthem. I couldn't tell you what it sounded like now, but it was just so beautiful. And the huge chorus of all those voices, we all stood in tears in the wings. It was so extraordinary.
Yeah. Well, I think it's probably a nice place to end it on. Unless there's any other productions or anything you wanted to mention at all.
No, I did another series in the 1980s called Together, and it's on quite a bit now, actually. It's on one of those, what do they call the ones? Turner, or no, something that comes on in the evenings.
Oh,
it's on another thing. Anyway, that was interesting. I did that for 2 years at Southampton. Katie Byron was in it, who'd been a great film star in the early films like Black Narcissus and those things. Margaretta Scott, and I enjoyed it. We used to drive down to Southampton every Sunday night and spend the week there doing this. We were all about a block of flats with a lot of very ordinary people in it. I'm smoking a lot and drinking. I'm a bit of a louche character. That was fun.
Oh, Andy says Talking Pictures Channel, it might be.
Yes, I think that's it, is it? Yeah. Thank you, Andy.
Well, thank you very much for talking to me this evening about the Avengers, your career. It's been a real joy.
Good.
It's been great. Thanks, Lena, for joining us. Hope everybody's enjoyed the event. And
were there no questions? No.
I think a lot of it I probably covered a little bit in.
Covered it, and you've covered it going on.
One point, perhaps, while on the question, Julian Holloway has a small role in as a circus stagehand in the Avengers episode. He's still alive. I think it was probably when we're talking about who's still around.
I know Julian, and his daughter is that very beautiful model, isn't she?
Oh yeah, yes, she is, isn't she?
Beautiful. Yes, I met.
I think
Sheffield actor. Well, I knew him anyway, and of course his father was a wonderful actor, Stanley Holloway. He's Stanley Holloway's son.
Oh yeah. I think Kenny Baker, who played R2-D2 in the Star Wars films, I think he's credited as being one of the circus performers, but whether that's just a falsehood that's kind of sort of
right.
I couldn't find him in the episode, but he may be in there somewhere. So, thanks, Lena, for joining us. It's been wonderful.
It's been a nice evening. Thank you.
Okay.
I'll shut down now.
Oh yeah, fantastic. Well, take care. Have a nice week. Take care. Bye-bye.